Thank you. We're going to need this. You can hang on to it because you can pass it around. Good morning. Good morning, class. Uh, so today's subject, which is not just giving but conscious giving, um, is this is not Science of Mind 101. This is sort of an advanced concept. So you picked a good day to be here. This is the AP class. um, I'm going to be using Eric Butterworth's um, spiritual economics as a reference uh, for a discussion. But I did want to make a note about the format. Um, Patty has designated this as the lakeside chat, and in the summertime and in the wintertime will be the fireside chat, which which Judy designated. So um, uh, because it's not because it's not my preference to use the podium unless it's necessary, like Christmas and Easter or whatever. I just prefer this format because it's a conversation. It's two-way conversation. I'm going to be discussing some topics, and anyone and everyone is welcome to chime in. And if you have something you'd like to share, or an example, or experience, or even a question, just raise your hand, and whoever has the microphone will pass it along. The reason that we're using the microphone is because we do have some people on Zoom joining us as well, and that's the only way that they could really hear and also participate. And for those of you on Zoom, you're in this group too. So if you have something to say, hi, Ocean, and hi, Carol, um, just raise your hand, and Diana will unmute you and you can participate in the conversation. Okay. Conscious giving. It's known by other names, other concepts. In Science of Mind, we find it in the law of circulation. You might have heard of that, which is an idea that what you put into the world returns to you in like quality and multiplied. The subtle trap, of course, is the limiting idea of giving to get. We're going to be talking about that. Some of the ways that that shows up is in relationships, also in social acceptance, also in political power and influence. We don't know anything about that, right? So, what my intention is today really is to bring the focus onto the word conscious. And it changes the energy, moves it beyond a transaction. So, anybody familiar with this book, Spiritual Economics by Eric Butterworth? Yeah, probably seen it, cracked it open a time or two in all your years of study. I do love Eric Butterworth. I don't know, when was this book put out? It's been let's see here, 2000, 1998. And the seventh printing is from 2005. So I was laughing at myself because I already have tabs in here from other times I've used it. So this time I put my tabs on the side so I wouldn't confuse myself. And there's lots of highlighting and marking in it because this has been a valuable resource for me, a lot of ways. But what he has to say about the grateful heart, because we know that gratitude is the energy of abundance and of all that is good in life. And he says, what is your most important asset? Conditioned as it is to materialistic values, your mind might begin weighing the relative usefulness of things. However, if you carefully search within yourself, you may come to the awareness that your most important asset is the conscious control of your own life. Nothing else can satisfy or fulfill unless you enjoy the freedom that comes from control of your inner world of mind and emotions. And then he quotes Walt Whitman: "Oh, while I live, to be the ruler of life, not a slave, to meet life as a powerful conqueror, and nothing exterior to me shall ever take command of me. Nothing exterior to me shall ever take command of me." That really is a definition of freedom. So let's talk a little bit about some of these transactional relationships that we have in the world, and maybe bring up some examples of perhaps times when we've um, fallen into that subtle trap of giving to get. Anybody have that experience ever? Got an example you want to share? Okay. Okay. Well, I did say this was an AP class, so.
That. So this was fairly recently in the last several months. Some of you know I had a friend recently who was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And this was a newer friend, a male. And we were getting to know each other in just very, very subtle ways. And when he got his cancer diagnosis, he asked me to be on his care team. It was several other people, many other people, for rides to chemo, walking the dogs, picking up some things from the grocery store. And I jumped in with both feet. I said, absolutely. And I spent the next several weeks really checking in and processing on, am I doing this because I really want to know if this person likes me the way I like them? Or am I truly being, altruistic about this? And it was a mix. That was the answer. It was
Mm,
definitely a mix. Um, but I'm grateful that I had the exposure to this concept that I knew to even ask myself the question,
yeah.
because this was stage 4. I knew this person was going to die. I just knew that.
Mm,
And, um, that word selfish is a hard word for me. It's a really hard word for me, because selfish, if you decide you are, leads right to shame, right?
yes.
um, so anyway, it was just, I'm still really processing. He died on July 4th.
Oh,
And right away, friends were saying, oh man, what a day. He found freedom on the Freedom Day, which was just beautiful, really beautiful. And I was just grateful, really grateful to have enough exposure to, and willingness, certainly, and surrender too, to, to be open to, uh, just that awareness that I really needed to be checking in and wanting to really walk a path in an authentic way.
mm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Patty. And I am I am sorry for your loss, and grateful for the friendship that you made, and the discovery, the opportunity to have this growth through the process. And also, my mother died on the 4th of July too. Not this year, just a few years ago. But we were somewhat joking about it, that she had dementia before she passed, and she was in an assisted living home, and they would have to put an alarm on her because she kept trying to leave, because she was sure that Jesus was in the parking lot and he was going to take her. to the airport and they were going to get on a rocket to go to heaven. And then she died on the 4th of July during the fireworks in in South Lake, so she did. It was I just thank you for sharing that story, and it brought my mother to mind too, and that brings up a whole lot of stuff on there, but thank you. And what a blessing to have known your friend, and what a blessing you were to him too. An extraordinary opportunity to be present with someone in that process. Anybody else?
I think almost every relationship has its transactional points. And, I was just thinking, it, relationships in some ways become partnerships, and there's sort of agreements about, you know, what steps over the line and what doesn't, and also who does what. Things need to happen. Just you might have a good friend that always drives, or you know whatever. And I was thinking about the fact that um, in, for example, marriage, there are all kinds of unspoken agreements, sort of like, I'll cook the dinner, but when the garbage disposal is stopped up, you have to be the one to put your hands in it, you know? But you know how many agreements you have when you live with somebody about, you take out the trash and you do the whatever. And if the other person stopped doing all of the things that were part of their agreements, what happens then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's exactly what happened a year ago to me. I have my partner fell into addiction being up here, and I came up to live with him from Texas. And then all of our agreements that we had built in Texas before he came up to do seasonal work here, he wasn't able to do because he was mired in addiction. And I ended up being a caregiver because there was also a mental crisis alongside that, and trying to get sober, and trying to figure that out. And that's been the grace and the hardship of this last year and coming back to spirituality is I want to do the conscious giving versus the resentful and obligated giving that it became, and the destruction that it was causing in this beautiful life-giving relationship that we had built. And so we're actively rebuilding and trying to find joy in giving to each other. But it's coming back to that balance, and then having to be thoughtful about and really intentional in conversation, the communication and the balance to make sure. So it relies on you, like you were saying, Patty, of looking inward at yourself and the inventory of what is true and what feels good and what are the motivations. And it's then also having the conversation with the people that you're in relationship with of where they're at, where they're able to give, what that relationship has to look like, renegotiated based off of those terms to keep it um, in that healthy, life giving place. So anyway,
Thank you. Thank you, love it. And take this moment and to make a mental note of all three of these examples that have just been Patty with the relationship that was um, had become a caregiver role, the idea of marriage, the idea of partnership, where a person um, isn't able to um, be a partner in that relationship. Just put a little mental sticky tab on that, because we're going to come back around to that, and it's a really important idea to explore. So I want to I want to invite us to, first of all, let's all take a deep breath together. We do this, if you come early enough, for the meditation, that's sort of a really wonderful opportunity to become centered and grounded and let all of the um, all of the doingness and all of the doing isness stuff, just to kind of leave it outside and to be fully present. And I want to invite that full presence into the room now right now, because I want to shift the conversation into another perspective of the idea of conscious giving. And invite us to look deeper into what we are giving to life. So, what do we have to give? First, I'm not a comedian, but every once in a while I try to inject some humor. Like, you're all sitting here in a an organization, and I use that term loosely. We don't fall into that organized religion type thing, but we are a 501c3 nonprofit. Technically, we're a church. Probably the non-churchiest church you've ever been to. Um, uh, and so when you show up to church and the subject is conscious giving, you might understandably believe that someone's going to ask you to open your checkbook. And that is not what this conversation is about. And it never is about that here in this community. Yes, we do learn the law of circulation, that idea that what we put out into the world comes back to us in like quality and multiplied. And it is an advanced spiritual concept to understand that to participate in life, to give, is part of the receiving process. It is all connected. There is not one thing and another thing. It's all the same thing. And that's a law. So most of us have a good understanding of that already. So that's not what we're talking about. But I want to talk about one of the biggest gifts that we can give to life is true attention. So coming back to Patty's experience, for instance, to truly be present with someone who has nothing to give you. They're getting ready to make their transition. This is not a fantasy of, a lifelong partnership or even a physical presence. There's no transaction here. That gift of your attention, of your presence with this person, extraordinary gift. For each one of us here, it doesn't require a circumstance like what Patty just experienced, but we have this opportunity in every day with every person we meet to show up and be present enough to see through and beyond the appearances, through and beyond my preconceived notions of who you are. Here's Sue. She looks so awesome today. She's all put together. She's, uh, um, the physical appearance and in all my history with Sue and my beliefs and my understandings about who she is and everything. If I am present enough, I can sit with her and see through and beyond all of that to the presence of the divine, the very presence of God in my midst, the very presence of the divine in this room with me, the very presence of the divine looking back at me from divine eyes. What greater gift is there to the world than my presence, my willingness, my commitment to give my true attention. When I look at the world from this perspective, the whole idea of a transaction just goes away. There is no transaction. There is only wholeness, oneness, and unity. You and I are mirrors looking back at each other. There is no giving. There is no receiving. There is only being. So I did warn you that this was kind of an AP concept. This goes far, far beyond the understanding about what it means to be giving of yourself. Because it takes us beyond giving to being. And that brings us to that deep knowing and deep seeing is the gift. Because when I see beyond the appearances, beyond our history, beyond all the years we've known each other and my beliefs about you and my labels I might have put on you. Nancy, she's a practitioner. She's one of the founding members of this community. She's just, oh my goodness, she's a guru. I can give Nancy the gift of deep knowing and deep seeing and let all of that go to the wayside to just let her be. And when I let her be, there's no expectation. There's no requirement. And that leads to love, joy, and beauty. Because those are the qualities of God. So when I can be fully present to life and to everybody living life with me, and I can allow them to be as they are, wherever they are on their spiritual path, which is how we begin, by inviting people in. Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you might still be in that phase. And here's another injection of humor. This is something we say in Science of Mind. When we're learning about manifesting and all of that, and we get to that place where we are in the princes, palaces, and parking places, and we're so proud of ourselves that I can manifest a parking place right up front whenever I want it, and I can manifest the man of my dreams and my dream home. That's the princes, palaces, and parking places phase. Guess what? It's a necessary phase. You don't skip over it, because until you have the experience of witnessing the power of your thinking in your own life by manifesting a parking place, it doesn't land. You can't go beyond, you can't go into the AP class until you have gone through the 101 class, the one where you discover in a very real, physical way that your thinking, the condition of your thinking, absolutely affects everything in your life. So you get there, but we don't stay there. It's a phase. We take that class, we master the class, we get a grade, because now we can get a parking place whenever we want. you know? But then we move beyond it, because there's more. That's only the surface. We don't get to the deeper until we go through the surface, right? We don't get to 1,600 feet till we dive into the lake. And the deepest expression is the presence of love, joy, and beauty in our life. Beyond the appearances, beyond the chaos, beyond the objective craziness in the world, beyond all of that, the truth that lives in our life is love, joy, and beauty. Oh, please do. I've been talking too long.
Yeah, the parking space thing. When I first studied Ernest Holmes, what was really impressed upon me, or that I was impressed by, was we don't get what we want by forcing it. We don't get what we want by taking what somebody else already has. So in the parking space example, we don't come into the parking lot thinking, oh man, I hope I get that person's spot and they better leave. And, we're not doing it, at least not after we've done it a few times. Maybe at first we are, and that doesn't feel right. We allow ourselves into this space of, one word is love, one word is peace. It's all of those words, all of those quality words, around the divine. And it's such a huge difference that I have really had to pay attention to. This concept of we don't get what we're demanding by someone else not getting.
Yes.
There is no lack, right?
There's no lack.
Yeah.
Thank you, Patty. There is no lack of substance in the universe. Later on in our gathering today, we'll have our prosperity affirmation. We do that. We talk about how we support the community, and we offer gratitude to the gifts that we receive, and we have this whole process about that. But giving does not refer simply to money. It's a process that may involve money, but it also involves your work and the many ways in which you give, in which you make contact with life. And in my book, I have it double underlined: contact with life. Boy, I could think about that for a while. The many ways in which I make contact with life. So we talked about it earlier, talking about giving my full attention, my full presence. The presence that's beyond just the surface. So giving is basically an attitude in which you touch things. It's the attitude that I touch things with. When I touch your soul, when I touch your heart, by seeing you, really seeing you, not just the label that I have for you, not our history together, but by really seeing you. That is how I make contact with life. So when you're rebuilding a partnership, a relationship that is the foundation of it is love. The structure of it has come apart as a result of illness, disease, injury, what have you, whatever it is, whatever the underlying cause of the breakdown of the structure isn't really the thing. Because when you go back to how you contact life, that the love and the joy and the beauty is what's true. And that is the foundation that you rebuild the structure on. So I'm going to talk a minute about Jesus. And this is something that has been a difficult idea to get. There's a scripture, and let me see if I know it's in here somewhere. Maybe I marked the pants. Okay. Hmm. Well, anyway, I don't know if that was a different one. Most of you have had some traditional Christian upbringing. Remember the biblical scripture about the young man who desired to become a disciple. And Jesus told him to go and sell all of his possessions and give the money to the poor, and then he could follow him. And the young man was unwilling to do that, so he, dropped his head and went away. And that is a scripture that is very difficult for a lot of people to get their heads around. Are we being asked to sell all of our possessions and give the money to the poor and live as though there's a humorous line in here about Gandhi? Gandhi demonstrated abject poverty. The only thing he owned were sandals and a begging bowl. And one of the people that supported his mission was quoted as saying, "It takes a lot of money to keep Gandhi in poverty." Because he had a movement, right? He had a movement. He had followers. He had people that were, and very similar when Jesus was walking the earth and teaching, that he had followers, and he went to give a sermon on the mount, and the people were hungry, and there was no food. And then there's the story of the loaves and the fishes, right? So it takes a lot of money to keep someone in poverty. Are we really being literally asked to do that? Of course, the answer is no, but the definitive wisdom behind that is, if you are asked to sell your possessions and walk the world with no possessions, the learning is, do you own your possessions or do they own you? That's the wisdom behind the lesson. If I am willing to sell everything I own and walk the world having no possessions, I am not owned by those possessions. They simply are. They are a physical manifestation of my consciousness. They don't own me. I enjoy them very much. I love riding my bicycle. I love having a variety of clothing to get dressed in the morning. I enjoy my home and all of these things. All of those things are outward expressions of my consciousness, choices that I make. But they don't own me. And I had an opportunity, let's see, how many years has it been? 19 years ago. June 24th, 2007, my home burned down in the Angora fire in South Lake Tahoe. Lost everything except for the car that I drove away in with my dog and my 2 cats. That period of time was an extraordinary opportunity to learn, because there were 2 things that really struck me. Number 1, I didn't really miss any of the stuff, and in some ways, it was a relief because I was burdened by a lot of stuff. My mother was in assisted living. She was starting to, wanting to like pass on all of the family stuff, the family Bibles. I lost the family Bibles in the fire, the heirlooms and all that stuff. And that stuff was burdensome to me. I didn't love any of it. It was an obligation. Um, so there was that experience. And it was extraordinary to notice how quickly the void got filled. So after the fire, we rebuilt our home on the same lot, and we filled it with stuff again. Even though I very consciously, intentionally meant to not bring, I am not bringing anything into this house that you would call clutter. Everything is going to have, useful nature. Um, in 2019, when we sold the house and moved off the hill, I was shocked by how much clutter was in the house. And Nancy, I think it's Tom who said, "I love that." I'm going to give Tom credit because I think he's the one who said all this clutter used to be cash. Oh my gosh. Oh, Tom. Yeah. Yeah.
Giving by obligation.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, I know I do that. I give by obligation and then check on myself when I'm doing it and thinking, well, why are you doing this in the first place? But there is a lot of obligation that goes with it. So and tied to that is the unconditional giving that
Yeah.
you just give from the goodness of your heart and you don't really think about what happens to it afterwards. You just
Yeah.
give to be giving. I mean, I think that you get a lot of feel good for doing that, for
Yeah.
giving unconditionally. But then the other one, the giving with obligation, does not feel good. So
Yeah.
that is a place where to check in, I guess, and see how often you do that.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I know I do that. I'd like to hear maybe a little more about that.
Thank you. I will say that I also have had that experience. I've had that experience in this very community. In this very community, that my own practice of giving was causing me uh, a low vibrational experience. There was a time when I had the feeling that I was giving for the survival of the community, and that if I were to stop giving, the community would not survive. That did not feel good. It did not feel good at all. Uh, and that it is an important check-in to do. So do check in with yourself. Look at where it is that you give, that you signed up. You made a commitment. You said, "Okay, I'm gonna sign up for this subscription, and I'm gonna support this organization." Which one of these categories does it come into? Social accept? Does it have something to do with social acceptance? Does it have something to do with political power and influence? So at any time, you can address that in one of two ways. Maybe there's more than one of two ways, but there's at least two ways. One of those is to check in and realize that you're doing it to get something, and then you can modify your behavior. The other way is to change the way you look at it. I never stopped giving it to this community. I chose to not see it in the way that I was looking at. I was looking at it as an obligation in order for the community to survive. And I changed that. I didn't change it before going through a whole bunch of stuff, like as in when, we were going through our transition from a Center for Spiritual Living to a teaching chapter, and we sold our building and we moved here. And, you know, uh, up to and including the intention I had of leaving the community. I was going to leave the community. There's another community that's closer to me. Um, but they're really big and they have 18 practitioners and they don't need another teacher. They got plenty. And and it's not the home of my heart. It's a lovely community, but it's not the home of my heart. So I made the decision to look at it differently. Oh, and by the way, along that journey, that need to survive went away. It went away when we consciously sold our building, and then we consciously invested the funds, and those funds consciously support this community with or without my participation. Everything changed. So check in with yourself and look at and make a decision about whether or not you, number one, change your behavior, or number two, change the way you think about what you're doing. And I'm coming up on time. Oh my goodness, I have a whole nother page of notes. But wait, there's more. Eric Butterworth said, "Your life is God's gift to you. What you do with it is your gift to God." And guess what? Who are you? We're all mirrors reflecting back at each other. When I live my life as though it's a gift, or as though I have received a gift from God, and I live my life in such a way to where I'm giving a gift back to God, who am I giving that gift to? It is the law of circulation. What you give returns to you in like quality, multiplied. So when I'm giving, who am I giving it to? I'm giving it to life, and life comes back to serve me. What a joy. So we know that gratitude is the energy of abundance. We in our community have returned to the practice of blessing the gifts of money we receive, which we'll be doing that later. But I want to invite us to look at what is beyond gratitude. Beyond gratitude is the knowing that giving and receiving are the same thing. Never allow money or any kind or amount to pass through your hands without blessing it, whether it is coming to you or going from you. To bless is an old-fashioned practice that needs to be rediscovered. The word means to confer prosperity or happiness upon. In other words, in handling money on any occasion, be sure to give it the imprint of positive attitudes. The money is a wonderful symbol of God's substance. Give thanks that it is continually pointing you towards the limitlessness of universal supply. Keep the awareness that it is currency, a movement of divine flow. When it comes to you, give thanks that it has flowed from the infinite through your job or investment. And when it goes from you, give thanks that there is no depletion, but actually an increase because you have kept it flowing. Yeah, yeah. Giving and receiving are the same. So, from a place of knowing wholeness, the idea of giving and receiving loses its meaning, and we see ourselves from the perspective of being. The perceived and the perceiver are the same. And so it is. Well, which one? What thing? This thing about the perceived and the perceivers are the same. The perceived and the perceiver. Oh, the idea of giving and receiving loses its meaning, and we see ourselves from the perspective of being. Of being. Yeah. That the idea of giving and receiving loses its meaning because we are just being that. We are being that. Thank you so much for your attention, for your presence, for your commitment to put aside all of your labels and experiences and the accrued evidence and just be with this knowing. And so let's finish with a prayer. Let's take a breath and feel that presence of being. Feel the support of the chair beneath you. And become aware of the next breath that you take, how it comes effortlessly to you. When you need a breath, you simply allow it to come into your life. And you don't hoard it. When you're finished with that breath, you release it. And the release of that breath is a gift to the trees, a gift to life. And in the wholeness and the holiness of this moment, each one of us gives and receives the gift of life easily and effortlessly as we breathe together. And our awareness of this gift grows in us. And we become sensitive to all of the opportunities to touch life. Every relationship, every encounter with every being. The relationship that I have with my own body. The delight in movement, in seeing beauty, in nourishing myself in a beautiful way. I have become sensitive to the ways that I touch life as I give and receive easily and effortlessly. I am so grateful, and beyond grateful, I simply am that I am, the expression of the divine, come in form, to give and receive the gift of life. I allow it to be, and so it is. Amen.